It's day 3, definitely for the week. It's Wednesday. Welcome to Breakfast Central here on News Central. It's day 3 as well for the Nigeria Economic Summit. And don't forget that we have consistently brought you updates right there in Abuja. That's because we're having a simultaneous kind of broadcast where Breakfast Central is here in Lagos as well as there in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. I'm Joe Hansen, welcoming you to another day where we'll be talking about some of the biggest stories, not just the biggest stories, but stories that concerns you. We'll also be looking forward to have a very seasoned analyst and guest who would join us to analyze these big stories. As usual, I am not doing this alone. I've got the duo who are there in Abuja, Olive and Benga Aborowa. Good morning, guys, and hope you're doing great. Hope you had a great night rest, especially after yesterday's cumbersome interviews and conversations that you held down.
Well, good morning, Joe. Good morning, Lagos. We are still live here at the heart of the nation's power seat. We're in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, bringing you day 3 of NES, the Nigerian Economic Summit, dubbed NES 31. And yesterday was quite an intense day, Joe. It was interviews upon interviews back to back. So we had some really high-profile interviews we're excited to share. Also, yesterday we kicked off with, right after Breakfast Central, the CEO breakfast meeting where we looked at setting a national productivity agenda for Nigeria and what that would look like. And I particularly liked that session because it gave everybody an opportunity to be a part of the conversation. So every table had a table leader, everyone had to contribute and pitch in, and there were presentations at the end, so it felt like everyone in the hall was a part of all the conversations that we had in smaller pockets. So that was really exciting. And then we heard from the government. We had the Minister for Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Atiku Bagudu, join us, and he just shared the government perspective, understanding where we are. So that was the key analysis. Where are we as a nation when we talk about productivity? What really is a productivity? What is this productivity marker? Where are we and where are we looking to get to? So that was like the highlight of yesterday's conversation for me. Of course, there were other sessions, but yeah, that's what day 2 looked like for us here.
I mean, Joe, it's been a power-packed conference. The last 3 days have been nothing but very exciting, but a lot of work too. I know Hilda has been breaking world records, but if you combine the number of interviews Olive and I have done the last 48 hours,
if you had known, you would have added a
record somewhere to be broken. But I mean, away from that light note, we've been talking to policymakers and the administrator. I had the pleasure of speaking with the Minister of Budget and National Planning just to have a sense of where the government is going with its directions, with its policy directions, how they feel and how these things translate from their own end to oftentimes we hear what the people are saying. We hardly get to be intimate one-on-one with government officials and those in the corridors of power, and this summit has given us the opportunity to do it. I also had the pleasure of speaking with special advisors to Mr. President on economic affairs and also trade and investment. So if you're watching News Central, we'll advise you to stay tuned. We'll be bringing you all those interviews in the course of the day and our programming. So, Joe, it's good to finally wind down and come back to base.
I mean, yes. Joe has not been able to really focus. It's been such a hard time for him.
He's
missed us so much. It's been a long day without you, our friend, and we'll tell you all about it when we see you again.
Lonely at the top.
Look,
Lonely.
Please. Please. I don't. Hello. If I had my way, I would love the both of you to remain there in Abuja. Just stay there if I had my way. Both of you just remain there because that statement you just made, na lie, to be honest. But let's go into.
Don't do it.
Let's go to one of the biggest stories, guys. The biggest stories that happened yesterday, and let's use it to kickstart the wake-up conversation. The minister, embattled Minister Uche Nnaji, eventually resigned yesterday after the certificate of forgery allegations. I think it could no longer hold. The presidency made a statement, of course, through the special advisor to the president, Mr. Bayo Onanuga. I seem to have a little issue with this statement that he did put out, but let's take a look at it and then let's start off the wake-up conversation. There you have it on the screen. It says, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has accepted the resignation of Geoffrey Uche Nnaji, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, following some, take note, some allegations against him. Now, he went on to say, President Tinubu appointed Nnaji in August 2023. He resigned today in a letter thanking the president for allowing him to serve Nigeria. Now, look at this line. Nnaji said he has been a target of blackmail by political opponents. President Tinubu thanked him for his service and wished him well in future endeavors. Where I have a challenge with this is that line where it said Nnaji said he has been a target of blackmail by political opponents. So I'm using this medium to ask Mr. Bayo Onanuga, he said, did the presidency also do its fact check? Anyway, this is his statement, his official statement, press release, statement by Chief Uche Geoffrey Nnaji, former honorable, he said, he added former there. So he's accepted his resignation by himself, for himself, immediately. Former Honorable Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology for immediate release. After deep reflection and consultations with family, associates and well-meaning Nigerians, I have today tendered my resignation as the Honorable Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. This decision did not come lightly. Over the past week, an orchestrated, sustained campaign of falsehood, politically motivated and malicious attacks have been waged against my person, integrity and office across print, electronic and social media platforms. These unfounded allegations and media distortions have not only caused personal distress, but have also begun to distract from the vital work of the ministry and renewed hope agenda of Mr. President. As someone who has spent more than 5 decades building a reputation anchored on hard work, honor, and service to humanity, I cannot in good conscience allow these distractions to cast a shadow over the noble objectives of this administration. My decision to step aside is therefore a personal choice, not an admission of guilt, but rather a principled decision to respect the sanctity of due process and to preserve the integrity of the judicial proceedings currently before the court. In the end, justice will prevail, and history will vindicate the just. Thank you. I mean, I added that thank you wasn't there, but he went on to say, I remain deeply grateful to His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for the confidence he reposed in me and for the privilege to serve in his cabinet. His vision for a renewed, innovative, and technologically driven Nigeria is one I continue to hold dear, and I pledge my unflinching support to his administration and his transformative goals. Chief Uche Geoffrey Nnaji, former Honorable Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, Federal Republic of Nigeria. End of the letter. Well, there you have it. That's what he said, and he's bowed out. And then the presidency accepted it and also highlighted the reasons, well, not really the reasons from the presidency's angle, but of course, the reasons that he gave. And it's right. So there are mixed reactions here. Nigerians are saying, wow, wow. So a minister can actually resign? Impossible. Well, we're going to see those reactions later on, but I'm going to throw it back at you guys. What do you make of this resignation? Especially, I know you were busy up until midnight to the wee hours because of the NES, but can you share what you thought when you eventually heard the story and saw it as a breaking news that the ministers finally said, my hands are up, I give up, white flag, I hereby resign?
Maybe the positive side and the not so positive side to this story. I have in my hand a list of politicians who have allegations of forgery, those who have had to resign because of forgery, the likes of Salisu Buhari, who was, this was from 1999 to 2000, who claimed to have a bachelor's degree from the University of Toronto, whereas what he obtained was a diploma. So there's a number of them. I can start to go through the list. But on the one hand, maybe the upside or the positive side to this, before we go into critiquing, is the fact that he's realized that he's in the eye of the storm and he did the honorable thing, which is to step aside. And a lot more politicians need to learn from that. When you have certain things, like you find that you're in the eye of the storm in this manner, step aside for a bit. Let them conclude investigations, confirm you clean, then you can come back. That's one. If we get to the meat of this, the presidency putting out a statement saying that they accept his resignation, it did rub me off the wrong way when I saw that, because it's not enough for you to say you accept. What is being realized here or exposed here is fraud. Fraud is a crime. So if you find that, you should condemn. Typically, the presidency always condemns. I don't know if they condemned this one and say, no, the presidency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu condemns. I've not seen any condemnation there. If you can go as far as, it's one thing for you to go through the school and say, okay, you didn't put in your best foot forward, but at least you graduated and you got a certificate. It's another thing for you to go to school in 1981, because the university keeps saying that, yes, he was admitted in 1981, but that there was no record of him graduating by 1985. So where did these certificates come from? You on your own decided, you masterminded forgery of certificate, and that's a crime punishable under Nigeria's law. So let's not take it with light gloves, kid gloves. And these are the people who are supposed to be the finest of Nigerians, setting the standard and representing what we have today in terms of quality of character and integrity. And if this is what we have to deal with, then it's a really sorry story.
I mean, I have a totally different take. Olive believes that, we should applaud the fact that he resigned. Look, if you resign and you're still denying the fact and your resignation letter is still defiant, you don't deserve any applause or plaudits.
I'm just trying to say a silver lining.
No, I mean, it was soft. It was embarrassing the government, and the government didn't want to deal with the baggage of the PR being a certificate forger in the cabinet of Mr. President. So he had to resign. He had no choice. But going ahead to deny and say, it's political manipulated, it's
malicious.
It's
what is malicious about it?
And then the presidency adding fire and insulting Nigerians. Not the presidency, Mr. Bayo Onanuga's statement, saying things like, he resigned, Nnaji has been a target of blackmail by political opponents. Did political opponents make you forge that certificate? Did political opponents make you claim that you were a graduate of the University of Nigeria in Nsukka? So these are some of the issues we should be talking about. How are we setting examples of integrity and accountability? Olive also spoke about the legal aspect of forgery. It is a crime in our constitution. And this is why, yesterday, Deji Adeyanju said, the judiciary is no longer the last hope of the common man, because you can see that a crime has been clearly committed here. Perjury. And still, no persecution. But if it was someone from the lower end of society, we'll see how justice would have been swiftly administered. So these are some of the issues we should be looking at. The presidency's statement on his resignation was tone deaf, and also the minister's resignation letter itself. He hasn't apologized for forgery. He hasn't admitted it when there's clear evidence against him. So we need to just do better. But let's also hear what Nigerians are saying. Okay.
Before we hear what Nigerians are saying, I think also there's a bit of a lot of an indictment on the House, because they did a screening. There was a screening that was done. So we talked about this slightly yesterday. Was there any vetting process? What was the vetting process like for these ministers? We watched it on TV when they would do bow and go, ask one or two questions here and there. It's not about asking questions. Even before we got our jobs, all of us here, we had to present certificates, right? Yeah. So what was the process? If for a job, I was speaking with a friend who got the job with the United States, and was sharing how, because of the sensitive nature of his job, they went as far as speaking to all his past employers. They went to investigate even. Wow. It was the investigation was deep.
Thorough.
It was thorough. Do we have that level of
Even
thoroughness?
If they can't do it, they should outsource it to third parties. There are organizations that do this, and they'll take it upon themselves for a fee. Do the due diligence for you. So it's very. And then no one is talking about his portfolio. Minister of Science and Technology.
Minister of Innovation.
Innovation, Science and Technology.
He's innovative.
He
innovated.
Wow. I wonder what lessons there's a setting for the younger generation coming up. I am looking forward to reading what Nigerians are saying.
Anyway, well, I mean, he's very innovative. His innovation has led to what we've seen here, and hopefully, I'm hoping that the presidency will retract its statement and put out another statement. Everyone is watching now, and we're watching to see if he's going to be penalized for what has been done. If he isn't, then we have set the motion running for what will happen in the future. But let's see what Nigerians are saying very quickly, and let's see how they're reacting to this resignation. Akintunde Babatunde says, now that the minister has resigned following the certificate forgery scandal and the investigations by Premium Times NG, journalism has won again. Yes, we agree with that. Now is to call for refund of all money he has made using forged documents. Oh, wow, my goodness. That's another angle to look into, because during his time as minister, maybe his time as maybe representing something else, he may have engaged in businesses, or his time as minister, and then there are conversations around that. But anyway, Williams Folaojo says, Minister Nnaji just resigned. Why did he? Probably guilty. He forged a certificate. Why do people think they can get away with stuff like that? Shame on Nnaji. Shame on the screening process of people who desire to lead. Shame on our system that's so vulnerable to forgers and forgery. Anyway, let's take this one. It's a bit long, lengthy. Pat Smott says, it's a staggering irony, isn't it? The very portfolio taxed with advancing knowledge, integrity in research, and technological excellence embroiled in a scandal over forged or questionable credentials. It's not just a breach of public trust. It's a symbolic collapse of meritocracy. In a country where innovation should be the engine of progress, such a scandal undermines everything: the credibility of national institutions, the morale of young scientists, the global perception of our governors, governance standards. It sends a chilling message to students and entrepreneurs that connections trump competence, and that the gatekeepers of progress may themselves be imposters. But this moment also invites a deeper reckoning. What systemic failures allowed such a person to ascend? What vetting process were ignored? And who bears responsibility for the oversight? If we're serious about reform, this isn't just about one minister. It's about rebuilding a culture where credentials are earned, not fabricated, where leadership is rooted in substance, not spectacle. I must say this, these few tweets that we've taken out of the many that we do have just clearly defines every single thing that comes out of this issue. A minister for innovation, science and technology. And I like what one of the commenters did say, that when you're talking about innovation and science, for those of us who were opportune to be in science class, science takes a lot. In short, integrity is one of the biggest watchwords for anybody who is engaged in any scientific processes, because, I mean, you cannot cheat nature when you are in science or you engage in any scientific processes. And this is someone who is to head that particular portfolio. And yet, he didn't do justice to even himself, talk less of his certificate, and not forgetting to that particular body, or you'd say that particular seat that he's been given to actually handle. Anyway, that's all we're going to take on what Nigerians are saying. Let's move on to another story, guys. On Wake Up Conversation, Mahmood Yakubu has finally bowed out. I mean, you know, he served 10 years. That's the tenure that you could stay. That's how long you could stay. And then he is handed over to one of the longest serving national commissioners in the Independent National Electoral Commission. And we're talking about the one and only May Agbamuche-Mbu. And she has taken over as acting in an acting capacity until the president eventually presents one who would eventually take charge as the official chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Let's take a look at the video to see the handover which took place yesterday.
Having been privileged to serve the commission for 10 years, with only a few more weeks to serve, I've taken a decision and convert same as provided by Section 306, subsections 1 and 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. In the interim, I am handing over to one of the most senior national commissioners by date of appointment. Following consultation with other national commissioners, Mrs. May Agbamuche-Mbu will serve in acting capacity pending the appointment of a substantive chairman of the commission.
So now INEC has a new chairman, a woman who has taken that seat, but for just an interim, or better still, for an acting position or capacity up until a new INEC boss is eventually appointed. But what key reforms should the next INEC leadership prioritize, and how can INEC restore trust among young voters and civic groups? My major question to you, Olive and Benga, as I push back to you guys, is this. How do you think the outgoing INEC boss, Mahmood Yakubu, will be remembered? Will he be remembered for one who had brought changes to the Independent National Electoral Commission, the one who had ensured that what he said when he said it, that he was going to use technology to ensure everything works fine, but it never happened that way? Is he going to be held accountable? Will history remember him for not having stood his ground to ensure that beavers and the introduction of it was actually used in totality? Or do you think Nigerians would kind of like put his name marked on the register as something quite different? It's over to you guys.
I would say that Mahmood Yakubu will most likely be remembered as a reformer in some sense, because he did bring digital advancement to our electoral processes. He came with so much fire and zest. If you go back to 2019 elections, one will consider it as largely free and fair. I don't want to say about the fairness, but it was a peaceful election, I would say, in comparison to a lot of the other elections we had witnessed. Him bringing in the whole digital process, beavers, IREV, digitizing the electoral process was definitely a plus when you talk about his contribution to the administration. However, by 2023, many began to view him as, his reputation had become very polarizing. There are those who viewed him as a reformer that was hampered by Nigeria's political realities. There are others who saw him as a symbol of INEC's institutional compromise. There were songs, if I was a bad guy, made a song about him. Yes, it's not a song that would be played on the airwaves, but that speaks to what a number of young people will remember his time in office, or his time as INEC chairman for. So I would say it's a mix. The positives and the strengths, which is of course the fact that he was able to digitize the process, and he brought reforms to our electoral process, but then again, the freeness and the fairness of the elections are still in question by a number of Nigerians.
From what Olive said, Olive has said it all, but I would just like to sum it up as saying he will be
All right, Mega, I'm trying to find if I can connect to you and hear you clearly, but I think we seem to have a little sound connectivity issue there. But I did take what Olive said, looking at his role in digitizing the process and the system, even though a cross-section of Nigerians will hardly agree with that, because they would take it back to the former late President Muhammadu Buhari, who had canvassed for a change and had signed in into law, of course, the electoral bill, looking at ensuring that the Nigerian elections would be more free and fair, very easy, no stress and so on, especially for the electorates. And these processes we did see take place. But did they take shape in credibility in terms of implementation, what was written? And don't forget that controversial or obnoxious conversation and law that would be found inside the electoral bill, where the former, because we can call him a former chairman right now, even though he said he has a few more weeks before he leaves his office. But the former chairman has said that what was written in the law was like he was going to transmit the result, but it didn't really say he had to do it electronically. Now, that conversation is what a lot of Nigerians will hold on to for a long time coming, stating clearly that if you did it in other states and then you couldn't replicate the same thing for the elections, the presidential elections, then there seems to be a major problem with the process. And then the announcing of the president in the early hours of the morning, Nigerians had never seen a thing like that in history, where they would actually wake up from sleep and then they hear, oh, wait, we have a new president announced when, at what time? But anyway, it's back to you guys, Benga, if you could hear me right now, and I hope I can hear you this time. You were trying to drop your own points and opinion on this issue. Okay, all right. Let's take reactions very quickly before we come back to you, you guys. Let's see what X is saying about the former INEC boss's resignation, or I'd say end of tenure, not resignation, I beg your pardon, because it seems to be resignation, reigning resignation everywhere, apart from the science minister resigning. But let's see this one. Atoba Jaye says, Nigeria will never forget how he shattered the foundation of our democracy through the 2023 cyber glitch. There you have it. And the election fraud. The will of the people was traded. Now, this is what some people will forever remember him for. This is a female Yakubu. Forget tribe. She's been everywhere, corrupt with him. How's she any different? Well, anyway, your opinion. But we're just trying to see what you're saying. She's just a scapegoat to take the next blame or make a certain region silent when it all goes down. Either ways, when confirmed, it will be a win-win for the team. Tochukwu, just to mention that she's not the INEC chairman. She is just in an acting capacity, except the president deems her fit to be the official INEC chairman. But for now, she's just acting. So also, let's be mindful of just throwing shades at people without having really known who they are. She has a very strong portfolio, by the way. So Professor Mahmood Yakubu hands over to his right-hand man as acting INEC chairman. Democracy just got a little more family and friends friendly. Meanwhile, Nigerians are still waiting for truly independent electoral oversight. Okay, I will take this one from Byron. Changing faces won't cleanse INEC's rotten soul. From Mahmood to May, it's the same corrupt cartel recycling fraud in fancy titles. INEC remains one of the biggest cancers eating Nigeria alive. It is an agency that rigs hope, kills truth, and sells democracy to the highest bidder. That's your opinion, by the way, Byron. But that's what Byron says, and others too have joined their voices in reacting to it. So many reactions on X. If you go there, you see what Nigerians are saying. It's a different conversation. Meanwhile, the Speaker, Abbas, has also spoken. He says that they must finalize electoral reforms ahead of 2027. So if the Speaker of the House of Representatives is saying they need to run it very fast, run quickly, and ensure you finalize all the reforms that's needed to be done before 2027, maybe May will be able to reform it. I mean, the first name is maybe May. Back to you, Benga. You've seen what Nigerians are saying, your reaction as well.
You could have taken up a career as a rapper. I saw your play on words there. Quite impressive, I must say. But I mean, these are very serious conversations that should be had. And she's going to be acting in an acting capacity, so I don't see how much you could say. But this has also led to lots of debates on, the president appointing the INEC chairman. They says it takes out the I, the independent in INEC, and you know what they say about who pays the piper dictates the tune. So it's part of those reforms that they're calling for. But moving away from that, yesterday, New Central had the pleasure of sitting down with His Royal Highness.
No, you can't move there. I'm not giving my thoughts on it too. No, please don't move away yet.
Great minds think
No. I still have my thoughts. Please. Great minds think alike, but not to this one. I need to give my thoughts on this one. And I need to give my thoughts because, yes, we've moved away from Yakubu and Yakubu's thoughts. But I want to speak, of course, you cannot see that we have a female acting INEC chairman, and I will not be excited about that. I'm very excited about that. Congratulations to her. Yes, she's not the INEC Chairman. She's tentative. There are strengths and risks to that. Now, she served as INEC National Commissioner in 2016 and was the longest-serving acting commissioner at the time, longest-serving INEC commissioner at the time. She also has a legal background. So not only does she have a legal background, her expertise, she practiced law for years. She's been known to be a fair person. However, she comes in at a very critical time, at a time where we have elections still coming up. So we would seem that the controversy that she would inherit some controversy from her predecessor, unfortunately. We could see from the tweet some people saying female Yakubu. Yeah, by association, not necessarily about the strength of her character or her expertise or her integrity. She will inherit some controversy because it's a very sensitive time to be an acting INEC chairman. Also, because she's temporary, she's acting, there's only so much she can do in terms of bringing reforms. She can't make bold reforms in certain areas.
Elections before, okay, the Anambra election is coming in November. But the president could appoint an INEC chairman before
well, he can. But I think also, for those who are wondering why she's serving, the way that they would appoint would typically be in terms of service. She's like I believe she's the longest, the most senior person at the time. So for the duration that we have, or that she has to be there, we wish her all the best, and we hope that, she can prove to the world that what a man can do, a woman can do.
Olive, one thing I really admire you for is you never fail to champion the cause of a woman.
Thank you so much.
Women supporting women.
Thank you so much.
Only if Johansson can have my back like this, but I'm sure he does.
You are also my fellow feminists.
Yes.
So thank you so much. All right, we can now move to the other story.
Okay, let's talk about this last week of conversation before we move into our top stories for today. Yesterday, News Central had the pleasure of sitting down on the sidelines of the 31st National Economic Summit here in Abuja. We sat down with the Emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, His Royal Highness, and he did reveal quite a number of things during the course of that interview. He said that he was sacked for revealing missing funds. I mean, you'd say, that's a good thing, is blowing the whistle, but why would you sack someone for doing that? But let's take a listen to His Royal Highness, and we'll be back to take reactions.
On this matter. First of all, let me say that what's happening with Dangote is very sad because it sends the wrong signals to investors, local and international. The Dangote refinery is a strategic national investment. To have a Nigerian invest over $20 billion in this economy, to have any individual invest $20 billion in this economy is, at this time when people have seen Nigeria as bad news, is something that we should all comment and something we should gather around. Secondly, if you look at the problems of the Nigerian economy on the fiscus before the refinery came on stream, the bulk of those problems had to do with the petroleum sector. Our refineries were not working. We're an oil-producing country that was importing petroleum products. In addition to importing petroleum products and draining our foreign exchange, we had huge corruption and huge scams in the subsidy regime. I lost my job in the central bank because I was pointing out these leakages. Now, the refinery disrupts a business model for rent seekers, and that is why it will face opposition. It is not about rights, it is not about the economy. It's about people who see the model they've had for 30, 40 years suddenly disappearing. People have made billions of money from this business, claiming they imported petrol that they never imported, claiming money from NNPC as subsidy, and in an opaque manner, in a manner that has not been audited, in a manner where nobody sees. Now that model is disappearing. We're now going to be a net exporter of petroleum products. We're going to produce our petroleum products locally. We're not importing. We are going to save our foreign exchange and actually add to the foreign exchange through our exports. Now, no patriotic Nigerian should get in the way of that refinery. I don't know the details of the conflict between him and the unions. What I know is that joining a union is a voluntary thing. If a driver wants to join a union, then he should go and work for a company that allows its drivers to join unions. If a driver chooses not to be part of a union and work for
Very, very deep conversation. You don't want to miss that conversation. Head on to our YouTube channel and watch the full interview where the former CBN governor did join News Central live from the NES event. And he spoke to, of course, our news channel, highlighting some of the major challenges Nigeria is facing, not just economically, but when it comes to investment. And that statement he made there, he was talking about Dangote versus Pengasyn, talking about the trade unions and Dangote having invested over $20 billion. The former CBN governor did say that it will scare investors when they start to see unions, people fighting an investor who has invested so much into the Nigerian economy. I mean, take a look at it. And this makes me wonder, isn't it shameful that as a country like Nigeria, we have only one refinery, major one, not the modular, the major refinery working, and it doesn't belong to the federal government. It doesn't. Rather, it belongs to who? You know who it belongs to. So it's enough for you to think ahead, and you would want to agree along the lines of the former CBN governor, where he said that it's not enough to just fight him. If he wanted, he could have taken his money elsewhere. And he also echoes exactly what the current vice president has said during the Nigerian Economic Summit opening speech, where he also said that Pengasyn is not bigger than Nigeria. And Nigerians should understand this as well as Pengasyn and the trade unions, that they're not bigger. But they also fired back and said that his statement was made out of touch, out of reality, that he doesn't really understand the reasons why they are indeed going head to head with Dangote. But these conversations are conversations that we will continue. But then again, head on to YouTube, make sure you watch that interview. A lot of insights. And for the fact that he was sacked for having revealed the leakages happening or going on within the Nigerian space when it comes to business, and when it comes to highlighting some of the key areas where, you know, they should be blocked. They should be blocked completely. And then he lost his job for doing so. It's enough for you to also have a rethink. But we'll have that conversation today as well concerning Dangote, Pengasyn. We do hear that there is going to be a strike and there's going to be a protest as well. We do have our reporters ready and set, camera gears ready, cars set just to move to these locations. So that means that in the course of our breakfast show, we will be having them come in and drop one or two insights and stories concerning what's going on in different parts of the country. So you do us a favor, stay here. We have you covered for the next few hours. I'm Joe Hansen. I look forward to hand over to Abuja pretty soon. But first, I'll let you know what we have today on the show as we take a look at our top stories this morning on Breakfast Central on a Wednesday. Wednesday morning, Breakfast Central, bright and early. Mahmood Yakubu resigns as INEC Chair, hands over to May. And it's an ongoing conversation. NBA President Groups call for judicial reform, and this is in light with what has taken place, especially we'll look into that again. 3 days back to back. NES, day 2 with Minister Atiku Bagudu. We'll have that interview exclusive. We'll play it out for you today. And we'll also look at day 2 review as we go into the final day today, which is day 3 of the Nigerian Economic Summit. And we'll have the front.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central, reaching you live from Abuja on the sidelines of the 31st edition of the National Economic Summit. It's now time for us to look at one of our top stories today. It's no longer news that the INEC Chairman, the former INEC Chairman now, has resigned his appointment, and he stepped down after 10 years of service in the helms of the Independent National Electoral Commission. In the capacity of Chairman, he handed over to the National Commissioner, Mrs. May Agbamuche-Mbu, takes over in active capacity as the Independent National Electoral Commission. She's the most senior of national commissioners, pending the appointment of the substantive chairman. Now, join us this morning to discuss this live in our makeshift studios here in Abuja is the Advocacy Officer for West Africa Democracy Solidarity, Network, Mr. Austin Aigbe. Warm welcome to you, Mr. Aigbe, and thanks for joining us for breakfast. Abuja. Yes, I wish we could stay here. Lovely. Yeah, it has the same. It almost feels like we're outside Nigeria compared to Lagos.
Are you feeling like we're outside Nigeria because the AC in this place is extremely cold?
No. The rose is properly organized.
I agree.
And nice.
Driving is very traumatic.
So away from Abuja to the matter we have come here to discuss, the resignation of Professor Mahmood Yakubu. He resigned early, weeks before his term expired. Is this a case of constitutional precision or political framing?
And just to add to that question, bearing in mind that there was a conversation about him taking a terminal leave, the presidency asking him to take a terminal leave, and we're asking, why is he taking a terminal leave when his tenure is ending in December?
Okay, thank you very much. So let's put this matter in perspective. I'm not sure there's any word written that he resigned. He didn't resign. Yes.
Or he was asked to?
So whatever asked to could be philosophical behind the scene, but the process for any public official, anywhere, even Jega in 2015, ahead of his former expiration of his tenure, he handed over the mantle to the most senior national commissioner then, a female. Ajia Amina, 2015, before Professor Mahmood came on board. So when Professor Mahmood came on board, there was now the former handing over to Professor Mahmood. So Amina did hand over to Professor Mahmood, not Jega, historically. So usually when public officials, including civil servants, ahead of their end of tenure, they do that formal 2 months, 3 months, maybe take a bow or whatever name you want to call it, but it is not resignation. His tenure expires December. He was appointed in 2015 and reappointed in 2020, and it's a 5-year term. The longest serving national chair of INEC is in history. There is no resignation, but there are speculations that it was forced out. I also don't want to toe that route, because when that story came out about 2-3 months ago that it's been asked to go on terminal leave, a lot of people were in blizzard, and the presidency also came out to say, we didn't say that. So again, who is saying what? So I would rather want to stand on the path that I know, rather than try to look at speculations.
The reality today is no longer the
reality, which we all expected, that at some point before December, he was going to take a bow and hand over to someone. 2 of them are very senior, but he decided to hand over to May Agbamuche. Again, maybe just following Jega's handover to Amina in 2015.
All right. Let's talk about his legacy. What legacy would you say that Mr. Yakubu is leaving behind in terms of the gains of his time as electoral INEC chairman, as well as maybe the downsides of his time as INEC chairman? And which do you think outweighs the other?
The good, the bad, the ugly. Man, with all due respect to Professor Yakubu, maybe he will be watching me now. I love its innovation, because INEC brought a lot of innovation, riding on Professor Jega's initial innovation. The technology. You just said that, technology. The beavers did a lot of work in this country, the beavers. In fact, moving forward on that was the IRF. So before now, after polls are taking place at the polling unit, results are being counted, there's usually a result sheet, which is called from EC60E, that is pasted on at the polling unit, for where journalists, voters will go and then check the result of that polling unit. But what we see is that after the poll, political actors who may have lost the election in that polling unit go there, put them down, discard them. So that card was then taken online, which is what is now called the IRF. So it just took the paper sheet online. So right now, you have the responsibility after polling at your polling unit to go on the IRF to check your result, that the result in your polling unit that you saw is the same online. But those gains became the downside of Professor Yakubu, the 2023 election. And obviously, the very popular commentary of if you don't agree,
Go to court.
which has become the downside of Professor Yakubu. And yet, up to this moment, he's been unable to take that out. He would have had the opportunity of doing that in 2027, but there's no time for him to do that.
Now that we have not a void, there's someone, May Agbamuche, Mrs. May Agbamuche is in the acting capacity. We expect an appointment of the INEC Chairman. If you could paint a picture of the sort of INEC Chairman Nigeria needs at this time in its nationhood, what would it be?
So first is that an INEC Chairman would be a Nigerian. So it's not going to come from the United States. So, but
INEC Chairperson, let's say
Chairperson, yes,
you know, because it could be a man or woman.
I do agree with you.
Yes.
I would like to invite you to our May Feminist Network because that's the concept.
Before you answer, to respond to that, yesterday Mr. Taiwo Oyedele was making a presentation at the NESG and he talked about ombudsman and said they've removed demand from it because they've now made it ombuds because so it's not just ombuds. So it's not ombudsman.
So we have to go to the dictionary.
Yeah. So
all of those. Because it's the same way we have to go to the Constitution. That's why we talked about the sexist language in the Constitution. There are a lot of them. For instance, the president is he. So we need to take that out and say the person shall be president. So that's on the side. But like you said, the person who should be the INEC chair has to be someone with record. Someone when you mention their name, we can easily track. So I'm not going to say it will be from anywhere in the country. It's a Nigerian from the north, the south, the west, the east.
How about professional background?
So that's what I'm saying. So usually, the person, I'm just going somewhere, so someone with integrity, who is accountable, I'm talking about track, but someone with some form of electoral background. You would have either managed an election, served as an observer, or you've been a returning officer in an election. So you should have some broad base, someone that is technologically savvy. It should not be an old school or a rule of the thumb individual. Someone who do not even have a Twitter account or a Facebook account, or someone who has a very big phone. You know, I use the word big phone literally, but who the only thing he does with the phone is hello, where you did. No, that's not the kind of individual. We now want an individual who is very savvy, integrity on the line, accountability on the line, transparency on the line, someone knowledgeable in election management. Maybe I want to a bit come down with the word election management because that's too big, but someone with some form of knowledge of election management. So that's why I talked about observer, you know, but someone above all who is not politically affiliated, someone who has never been in any political party, someone who has never contested election, because politics has to do with interest. And the truth of the matter is that you can have political enemies, political friends, but what is constant is interest. And when the interest realigns, all the enmity and the friendship doesn't really matter. That is why you see political actors who've been enemies years ago, by the time they jump ship and they are in the same ship, they just suddenly align and they forget. And they tell you, well, that was those days. All things are forgiven. So the thing is, that individual must not be a card-carrying member, even if it was 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Because it does have a relationship.
So, if you're talking about interest, and I hear you when you say that, you know, in politics, no permanent friends or enemies, only permanent interests. But can we completely erase the idea of interest, especially seeing how the INEC chairman has been appointed? The fact that, again, he who plays the piper dictates the tune. The president has a hand in determining who the INEC chairman is.
This person you just built for us.
Very fantastic. It's not that the president determines. The president is the one that appoints. It's their sole responsibility. It's constitutional. His role is then to nominate, get the Council of State, and have a conversation and seek their advice. Underline the word advice. Not approval. It's just advice. Then it takes that to the National Assembly, who then do some form of approval processes and all of that. But the thing is, because the Constitution says so, we are asking the president. You once had issue with former President Jonathan about electoral act and all of that. Do the right thing. Set the path of justice. So do the right thing. The same thing we told former President, now late President Buhari, who denied assent to electoral reform for a long, up to 5 times. What
is the right thing?
The right thing is to open up the base for an INEC chair. What that means is that set up a committee of stakeholders to nominate someone, maybe 2 or 3 persons. This is not constitutional. This is just you as president. Set up that committee, get maybe all of the professional association, including the NUJ, very key stakeholder in this narrative. Get them to nominate maybe 3 individuals. Of that 3 individuals, you can then pick one and send to the advice of the council, and then you send that individual to the National Assembly. If that person doesn't follow through, maybe fail the process, you go back to number 2 or 3. I mean, you have 3 nominees. That way, you'll be seen as someone who didn't have a say. But again, politically, even if the president wants to do this, all of these actors around the president will say, no, it's your time.
It will be suicidal.
Yeah, maybe.
To do it.
But again, it doesn't really matter. Was it not Jonathan who appointed? Don't think about the suicidal nature. Think about Nigeria first, and that's what has been in the United States. That America should think about America first. But in this case, people think about themselves more.
If that position was an elected position.
It can't be an elected position because at the end of the day, it becomes political too. What can happen is that it's a job. Apply for the job. For everyone who came to New Central, went through a process of recruitment, the team of interviewers will interrogate, try to find out, including your diction, how you speak, how you pronounce words.
We also do a background check on our certificates, which the National Assembly is failing to do.
No, the National Assembly does. So this is where the question is.
Okay, so how did Mr. Nnaji escape then, if they did?
So I said somewhere elsewhere yesterday, and I said, you see, the DSS job is to do background check. Background check may or may not include certificate check. Most of the time, they are checking against the backdrop of this individual, against the Nigerian state and Nigerian security. So if this one is fine, and once that person is backed by the president, you don't need to do much. It flies. After all, the same DSS and National Assembly turn down a presidential nominee for minister and then allow one to go. It means that they don't do the thorough job, but the main job is security. I think so. Because again, and that's what I'm actually worried about, this guy resigning.
Layer of checks beyond the DSS checking for security. They need to vet those certificates and degrees.
I have argued that it is time for maybe there need to be some form of policy framework in which anyone appointed at any level, INEC, ministers, commissioners, their certificate should be public for at least 2-3 weeks. And everyone that has a say should say that now or forever hold your peace. Because it is important to put that on. Because every time we see our elected officials and all of that swimming in, INEC does that very professionally. And once you apply, there's a form you have to fill, you submit your certificate and all of that, INEC publish all of those. So you have a responsibility to go and check. So if INEC published it and you refuse to check at that material time, don't raise that a year or 2 after. Because the honorable minister, in fact, I don't know whether to use the word now honorable, because the issue of certificate forgery is not a joke. I would not expect him to resign.
By the way, he's no longer a minister.
Yeah, but in this country, once you have been,
his act was dishonorable, forging a certificate.
But that's what I'm saying. So why is he not in jail? Why is he not in court? Why is he not being prosecuted? Forgery is criminal. And there need to be someone that need to be an example in this country. If that the foreign minister is the example, so be it.
Okay. I know we're talking about INEC.
On the set, so you might like to answer that question. Why has he not been prosecuted?
Well, because, first of all, he hasn't been charged before a court of competent jurisdiction. Section 36, subsection 5 of the Constitution provides for the presumption of innocence, innocent until proven guilty. So if there's a case against Uche Nnaji, he should be taken to court, been given a chance for fair hearing to defend himself and say, look, I didn't.
So what's public prosecution waiting for?
Exactly. So
we need a directive.
Who is supposed to direct them?
The Attorney General of the Federation.
Okay.
Who happens to be a member of the same party with the accused.
Okay, I see where you are going.
let's now come back. back. We've talked about Uche Nnaji, and we'll come back. Maybe if we have some time, we'll talk about that later. But I want us to exhaust the conversation on INEC. Now, May Agbamuche has been appointed as the acting INEC chairman. She has a history. You've painted a picture of what the typical INEC chairman should look like. She's Nigerian. She has experience. She's practiced law for, I think, over 30 years. So she has the legal experience. She has the electoral background. I do not know, but I want to assume she's non-partisan and has not been a member of any political party. What do you think will be the immediate mandate for her? And what would be some of the stumbling blocks she would face? And I ask this because, of course, there are some baggage that she may inherit from Mahmood Yakubu. Do you think that would be a stumbling block for her in the interim?
So it's not a Yakubu's baggage, it's the commission's baggage, because she's also part of the commission. So, yeah. So, for her, I know her too well, very closely, because of the kind of work we do. I think she's someone of integrity. I do agree. She says what she meant, and she does what she wants to do. For me, I would actually ask President Tinubu to appoint May Agbamuche as the chair of INEC.
So she's not bad from
but again, she just had limited days as national commissioner. I think by February, her tenure also ends. So she's only going to hold for this period to December. But I am saying that because she's got the nuance, she understands, in fact, the experience. She's her second term. She's also doing almost 10 years. Like
she's also the longest serving commissioner.
Yes, with Commissioner Aruna is also there. They came almost at the same time. But apparently, I think maybe a few days. But the decision to hand over to her is entirely maybe that of Yakubu, not the presidency. I saw a statement later yesterday. It's an internal workings. You just agree and you hand over to the most senior. But I see the presidency try to come in as if they were the one who advised. I don't think so. But yes, May Agbamuche does from Delta. In fact, I saw her work in a dual election. I've seen her work elsewhere, even on show election. The way she's slow to speak, and when she speaks, it's golden. And I think that individual should be. And in any case, why can't we have the first female national chair of INEC? And it is time. Now we're talking about reserved seats in National Assembly. It is time to reserve the national chair seat for the woman. And I think May should, because of what? Because she has an historical experience. So there's nothing like we talk about weather baggage. She's going to carry
all the checklists you gave
all
us,
the checklists, including being a lawyer of long standing. She's an arbitrator.
Yes, she has a
very sound. She's not just a Nigerian lawyer. She also has a bar association from the UK. I'm not saying that's justification, but I'm saying that this individual does have a very strong will, decision strong. In fact, among others, I can also call a few commissioners, resident electoral commissioners, someone like Professor Sam Egu, someone like Obo Ifanga, and many of those. These are strong-willed individuals. When they say yes, their yes is yes, and when they say no, their no is no. So getting someone now, we are going to test May in November during an Anambra election.
Not too short a time.
No, because she's not.
Well, she's been a part of the process.
It's just like saying
I understand.
That, someone, suddenly you are not going to moderate session, and someone who have been looking at you or is part of your crew can easily jump in and moderate the session.
Lakumi can do all of this.
Exactly.
She's so brilliant.
So I agree with you that November will be a litmus test for number elections. But like you said, it is time, maybe it is time for us to see that.
Let's remove the word May. It is B. It is B.
May because May.
Because May.
Yeah.
I like the alliteration.
Thank you. What is a great way for us to put a pin on this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. And I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, I must admit. We'll go on a break now. Breakfast Central continues in a moment. We're still going to be speaking about Minister Uche Nnaji in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're still reaching you live from the Federal Capital Territory. It's day 3 of the Nigeria Economic Summit, NEST 31, and we're looking at the Reformation Initiative, building a sustainable and prosperous Nigeria by 2030. But so much has happened in the past 24 hours and more. First of all, news reaching us, like we started the show with, is that the Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, Geoffrey Uche Nnaji, has resigned amidst rumors of forgery. There's been investigations carried out, and he's of course sent out his resignation to the president. The presidency has received his resignation in a post by Bayo Onanuga. Now, what are the implications of this? What is the next step forward? And then, we'll also be taking a look at the judiciary, the state of the judiciary. Recently, the NBA president, Mazi Afam Osigwe SAN, spoke about some of the challenges and opportunities that lie within Nigeria's judicial space. We hope to explore these conversations today on Breakfast Central. Now, joining us this morning is Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Monday Ubani SAN. Leonard Sip, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me. First of all, maybe I'll start by saying congratulations on welcoming new SANs into the fold.
Yes.
It's a time for celebration indeed.
We are becoming a father in the business, and you are seeing your children grow up, and you're so excited. I was there live. I was there at the Supreme Court. It was quite an interesting event. And then, of course, you mentioned the speeches made by the stakeholders, the CJN, Chief Olani Kweku himself, who happened to represent the Bosan, and then the president of the bar, Mazi Afam. Beautiful speeches, So.
Mazi Afam's speech was quite. He made a lot of submissions that he talked about a number of things, including the SAN and the criteria for becoming SAN. We know that it's the pinnacle of your career as an advocate, right? If you're not looking to go to the bench. He talked about expanding the qualifications so that more people can be able to get the opportunity to become SANs. One of those categories would be, of course, the academics and those in research. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, on the issue of the academics, people are saying that is an issue of advocacy. That if you are in the academics, you are not advocating in the court. It can be both. The highest you can attain in that ladder is being a professor. Are you following me? And then you are being a professor, you now want to also come and compete with those who are, really going to court virtually every day. So, that is academic. So it's not advocacy because it's senior advocates of Nigeria. And so the argument is, look, why don't you pursue that career in that line and all that? So they allowed only one every year, but people are asking for expansion, and then the academics themselves are saying, look, you are restricting us. Why don't you make us to be part of the entire process? So the argument is forward and back, but we believe at the end that those who are the major stakeholders will be able to come to that particular conclusion that will be fair, just, and equitable. It's very important, So, but for me, being a professor, they should pursue their professorship and leave us at the advocacy level. And that's my own.
To the university
They
compete for professorship.
Yes, exactly. We don't.
We'll talk about some of the things that we said there if we have time.
Many things.
Yeah.
Many things that resonated. He mentioned the issue of the opportunity that is always looking like as if it's lost in the issue of pronouncement of the emergency rule. When the president imposed the emergency, he also dismantled the elected structures. And so many persons went to court in order to have the court determine that before the expiration of the tenure, of the suspension. Beautiful. So unfortunately, the courts were not willing at that time. So he mentioned it, that is a lost opportunity, because they may mention now that the matter is academic, but there has been a decision. There has been a decision recently after that particular speech at the Supreme Court, where the court said that those that came to court lacked locus. That it is only the Supreme Court that has jurisdiction over emergency validity. If you are challenging the emergency rule, the only court that can hear you is the Supreme Court, with its original jurisdiction.
So knowing this fact now,
Yes.
if we had another state of emergency and somebody feels wronged,
Yes.
how better, or what advice would you give on how to approach the courts?
That is a very beautiful question. It's only the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court determines parties Parties that can come to Supreme Court to invoke original jurisdiction are states and the federal government, or National Assembly and the federal government.
Does that involve the governors?
Yes, that involve is the governor. But the point now is that at the point the person is going to court, there is already an administrator that has been appointed by the president. The administrator will never give you leave to go and sue, challenging him. That is the problem. The governor who has been ousted does not have locus anymore. Jurisdiction. He can't go there as an individual to the Supreme Court to invoke the original jurisdiction. It's only the state and the Attorney General. So who gives you that authority to go and sue on behalf of the state? It is the administrator who has been appointed. So unless there is a constitutional amendment, the opportunity to challenge emergency rule and the dismantling of elected structures cannot be redressed in the court of law.
This is a dangerous precedent.
It is, if you ask me, that's why I said that unless there is a constitutional amendment. So the lawmakers have to sit down and say, look, do we intend to give the president the power if in the course of declaring an emergency to dismantle elected structures? They can correct it. They can say yes. Because it started as a precedent, political precedent in 1962, when Tafawa Balewa imposed emergency rule in the southwest, and then dismantled elected structures, and nobody challenged it. Or there were some challenges and all that, but there was no success. Then Obasanjo now look at the books and started the same thing in 2004 and 2006. Other presidents preferred a situation where they preserve the elected structure, be a hybrid. You are very intelligent. And so that is Jonathan. The same thing with, who is his name now, Buhari. Buhari did not dismantle, rather Buhari increased what you call military presence in the states, where he thinks there is insecurity, right? But when President Tinubu came, he looked at the books, and he resorted to 1962 and Obasanjo's methodology. That is what happened. But people went to court and say, do you have that particular power? As a president who has been given power under Section 305 to impose emergency rule to also dismantle, that is the issue.
So now that the court is giving that judgment, is it possible for them to reinstitute fresh proceedings at the Supreme Court?
No. The point is that who will be the person to institute that particular decision at this point? Who will be the person? If he's the new governor, the governor who has been reinstated, now he becomes academic.
Yeah, so maybe not necessarily because they want a change, but just so that it serves as a point of reference.
Somebody has gone to court now, but the court now says, well, you don't have locus, but let's even decide a matter on merit. The court now went into the merit and said, look, there were circumstances under which the president had the right to have declared state of emergency. He also had the right to have dismantled the elected structure. The reason being that those who were implicated as stakeholders, the political class, couldn't have remained when an administrator is appointed because there would be a conflict of interest. There would be struggle again. You want to restore peace, and then you're allowing a governor who is probably the problem of the emergency in the first place to now work alongside with the administrator. So it will create a conflict. So he believed that the president was right in dismantling elected structures for 6 months, yes.
From emergency rule, and I want to touch on the conversation we had just before you came, which is, of course, we're looking at the INEC Chairman, Mahmood Yakubu, his tenure coming to an end, and him handing over to May Agbamuche. One thing that was very prevalent in his time, or his tenure in office, was if you're not pleased, go to court if you disagree. And the courts had a huge role to play in past elections. And I want you to speak to the role that the court has played in terms of ensuring that they have been the final or the last hope of the common man in elections.
The problem is that the judiciary should have been the one to determine whether an elected officer has been validly elected. It is at the polling unit to decide who becomes an elected personnel for the country. But we have involved the judiciary so much that people call it judicialization of our electoral process, of our political process. It's not right. The court can only come in when there are irregularities in the process of election, and you find out that those irregularities can be redressed by judicial intervention. You go to but the issue of everyone now going to court, even those who know they have lost that election, they know that they want to go and try their luck because anything can happen with with the judicial system. So it is not right the way we are pursuing electoral matters in the judiciary. We are overburdening the judiciary in the first place. And we are making the judiciary to be the last, electorate in electoral process. Is not right. It is the people that determines who governs them. You can only go to the judiciary when there is some irregularities and the court now can probably give a redress or ask for a rerun, but not that the judiciary should be the one to determine.
This judicialization of the electoral process?
That is a very good question. I think the best thing is making election to be really free and fair, and then those who go to court when the election is absolutely free and fair and very credible should also be punished. In making it very impossible for you to go to court, when it is for frivolous reasons. In Supreme Court now, if you are bringing an appeal on electoral matters, they ask you to go and deposit a certain amount of money. I did it. And then if your appeal is very frivolous, you lose that 1 million you have deposited. Maybe making it very, a bit, impossible. Because there are some lawyers who go to court on electoral matter knowing that is the shortest court to be a senior advocate. Yes, if you handle electoral matter from the first court of instance, the lowest level tribunal, up to Supreme Court 3, it qualifies you from the Supreme Court angle. Whereas if it's not electoral matters, don't handle it from beginning to the decision, is 4. Now the problem is that, the good thing for electoral matter is that it's time bound, so they will hear it quickly. So many lawyers now use it now as the shortest court in order to fulfill the requirement of being a son. And so even if they know that there is no reason for them to go to court over the electoral result, they now want to go because it will help them to facilitate their process. Are you following me? So we are saying make it a bit more laborious for them. You pay a certain amount of money, for you to, if you know that this election is free and fair. So by the time we really ensure that there is credibility in the electoral process and somebody is going to court for stupid reasons, then he has to pay for it. So credibility of the electoral process is key. That is one of the way of discouraging people using judiciary to now give a final stamp to who becomes a leader or becomes a president.
Business, yes. Now let's talk about a very important issue, the wanton disregard for court orders in Nigeria. It impugns on the integrity and the sacrilegious, the sanctity and the sacredness of the judiciary. And we've seen this. We've even seen law enforcement agencies disregard court orders. Why are we seeing a rise in this, and why are there no consequences? Because the impunity is sickening. We just witnessed one recently with the Nigerian police on this tin permit issue.
It's one of the most unfortunate events in our judicial system where judiciary will make a pronouncement and it's not been obeyed. I obtained a judgment over 15 years ago. A young man was shot by the Nigerian police and he had to go and treat himself because if he did not, he would have died. He went to South Africa and came back, and we initiated an action against the Nigerian police. They never put up any defense and judgment was given. I have done everything humanly possible in order to have that judgment enforced, to no avail. I have written to the Attorney General. Up to now, there has been no response, from the IG in order to, pay that amount of money that was awarded by the court. So it is a very worrisome situation that you follow a process, and then the number of years you spend in court, that is not taken into consideration. And then when you succeed in getting the judgment favorably, you cannot enforce it. Then why do you have to go to court? It makes people now to lose confidence in our judicial system. They say, why do I have to waste my time? Why do I have to, they use unorthodox in order to probably get justice. And so it's something that we need to sit down and address. The Attorney General, the major stakeholders in the judiciary must sit down. Do we get an arm of security outfit that can now be attached to the court that will now enable enforcement? Because relying on Nigerian police has been very, very, it's not successful. We have not had it good, especially when the security, personnel are involved in either Nigerian police or the army. You cannot enforce it. So we are saying we must take it as an emergency situation and say, look, the issue of enforcement of judgment is very critical for people to believe in our judicial system. Something must be done. It's either you are committed for contempt for disobedience, or there must be another arm that will enforce judgment. So something has to be done. Actually, it's a sad situation. It is not good for us. It's not something that we should, commend. It's something that will get us worried and all that. I believe it's a very vital point to raise. Yes.
Another issue that has dragged criticism, in the judiciary is politicians, the members of the executive, handing over gifts to politicians, to judiciary. The judiciary saying hobnobbing with the executive. How much of a problem is that, and how do we fix that?
It can pass with independence. The Constitution has actually made provision, elaborate provision for independence of the judiciary. Even with the issue of financial autonomy, is there in the Constitution. Now, the governors do not allow the chief judges of the states, to be in charge of the finance. They are the one that actually now put themselves in a position to dispense funds. They buy them vehicles, whereas the judiciary should be the one to determine whether they need those vehicles. They build houses for them and all that. And when you are doing that, you are making it look as if it is judiciary, it is executive money you are giving to them. It is their money that you are using to do all that. Why don't you allow them to control those funds and be in a position to determine priority? Well, this is what we need, whether it's houses or cars.
What's the global best practices? How's it done in other
Global
countries?
practice is that the judiciary should be in charge of their funds. They determine priority. It's not the executive that does that interference. Because by the time you pay, buy those things, you make it look as if it is, and of course, they expect favor in return. It really, really impairs on their independence, for allowing that actually to happen. So the best thing to do, if you ask, and I'm suggesting, is that the constitutional provision as to independence, both financial and administrative, should be enforced. Allow the judiciary to determine what is priority. What's their priority? Let them be the one to build houses for themselves, buy cars for themselves. There must be proper auditing and monitoring also to ensure that there is no abuse, right? Because why they are saying that some of the chief judges may have been involved in abuse of usage of funds, and that's why they now say, let's get them out of this and all that. But you must monitor them. They are human beings themselves also. They must be monitored, but don't allow the governors to be the one to detect the priority for judicial system. Yeah. And if they do that, they really, really, really impairs on the independence.
The former head of the Nigerian Human Rights Commission did write an op-ed on this, which he tagged the Minister of Judicial Welfare. He was referring to these gifts and
what's that? We've been talking about independence of judiciary right from my days in university. Now we're still talking about it. But we're going to break. When we come back, I want us to now visit the conversation about certificate forgery and resignation from office. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're still looking at the judiciary, but this time around we're taking a different turn with the conversation. We're speaking with the learned SCN, Monday Ubani, and this time around we're looking at the resignation of the Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, Geoffrey Uche Nnaji, after the allegations of a forged certificate. So let's come to you, sir, and talk about what the implications of this are. On the one hand, he's still claiming. We saw his position and his resignation letter. It says that if we have that, if our team can please put that up. He's saying it's malicious. They're trying to tarnish his image. It's basically politically motivated. How do we balance that with the investigation that was carried out, with the university saying clearly that they did not issue him a certificate, and then also taking note of the presumption of innocence?
Yeah, he's presumed innocent. If you've been talking about crime now, until proper investigation is done and then charges filed and then there is prosecution and conviction, he's still innocent in the eyes of the law. But the position is that I had wanted a proper explanation as to the certificate he presented. That is only, there's only issue to me. For every other issue, yes, you said it is malicious. You say that probably the Vice Chancellor is now a politician, in the garb of a professor, and he is used by their political enemies. But the point is that you presented a certificate.
Where did you get
that certificate? Is it from the? And I think he felt that honorably, the best thing to do in this circumstance is to resign. Are you following me? No, so doing that for me is an honor to him. I respect him for that. Instead of dragging the matter, I listened to his man, on television yesterday. I sat down to listen to a better explanation, to really give me explanation as to that certificate he presented to the Senate and to DSS. Who gave it to him? Is it the university? I wanted him to say it's the university, but they were not. They were looking for the script, they call it the result. The result is different from the certificate. The certificate now qualifies you as a student who has graduated from the university. But when you talk about transcript, it's when you are probably applying for master's or for PhD. They want to see the results of all the subjects and all that. That's where transcript is very valuable. Yeah, INEC doesn't. It's certificate they require. So since you now was employed as a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and you tendered a certificate, that certificate, where did you obtain it from? That's on. And he felt that if he has no explanation for that certificate, that the best thing for him to do, I just kudos to him. I respect him for that, for putting in his resignation. Whether the state will want to prosecute him is a different matter entirely.
It's only the state that can institute criminal proceedings against him for forgery.
Yeah, you can also lodge a complaint as an individual, but I think investigation of crime is only done by a security agency. It is that security agency, after investigation, can say, look, this particular, a prima facie case has been made out. Because if you are alleging forgery, you must prove that there is a original. You must prove that the document is in writing. You must prove that the alteration or fake was done by the maker, by the person himself. This man you want to charge, you must prove that
is presented or presented.
All these are elements of the offense. It must be the person who may have faked it. You must those things must be present in crime of forgery. Now the issue now is it him that did it or somebody tendered it in his
He went to apply to the university and somebody facilitated a forged certificate for him.
It is security agency. So that's why I say it is safer for security agency to be the one to actually be in charge, investigate, and if a prima facie case is made out, charge him if they want to charge him. If they want to charge him. But people are insisting that he must be charged. No, but the point is that would the state be willing to charge him in the circumstance? But for me, it's a mark of honor for him to have tendered his resignation. I love him for that, and I appreciate him for what he has done.
Is it really a mark of honor, or he shouldn't have presented in the first place? Yes.
When it came to that, when it came to the realization, no way out.
It was game over. It was game over. Yes.
Some people
we've seen it in the past. Yeah.
And because now I said no, nothing will happen and all. Are you following me?
Yes.
But look, the best thing for me in this I don't want this controversy, and I'm sure he must have been prompted to. And the president was willing to accept this and say thank you for the services you have rendered so far. But for now, step aside, and which he did. Honestly, to me, I respect him for that. You may disagree with me.
But the issue is, this is not the first time. Even the president was accused of forgery. They've accused a number of politicians of forgery. Kemi Adeosun, a number of people.
Kemi resigned honorably and went back to London and all that. So to me, it's a mark of honor for somebody who knows that he has no explanation for any impropriety and say, look, the best thing for me to do in this circumstance. To me, I respect him for that. But whether they will want to prosecute him is a different ballgame.
Okay. I think maybe my final question in regard to that would be for those who are saying, a pushback to your response might be because they are public officials, they are held to a higher level and a higher standard of integrity. So should it be if they want to prosecute, or should it be there must be an investigation? And like you said, if there's a prima facie case, there must be a prosecution.
Now, if the government feels that let's use this as an example. Obasanjo did it with one of his ministers who committed one level of impropriety and all that, and he took him to court and he was charged and convicted, right? Now, if this government feels that, look, this is not right, we must correct this and all that, then they can initiate. You said use him as a precedent. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's the government that will take that decision. Yes.
Now, finally, there's been talks about the judiciary. They say the judiciary is no longer the last hope of the common man. The phrase "go to court" became catchword in the aftermath of the 2023 elections. And, you know, ordinary Nigerians, the masses, feel they can no longer trust the judiciary. They feel it's politicized and they've lost some of their credibility. How or what work does the Nigerian judiciary need to do to restore confidence and faith of the ordinary Nigerian people?
Started with the Attorney General, with major stakeholders in that sector, you know, the NBA, and even the CJN. They are all worried with the loss of confidence on the judicial system, and all is being done in terms of reform, both statutory and procedural, in order to give people some level of confidence. You know, quick dispensation of justice is key. Recruitment process is also very key. I'm talking about the personnel now. They're saying, look, let's follow the process of allowing input from the members of the public. For now, if you are nominated to be a judge or you are, you know, they must have input from the members of the public. You know this personality? What do you have to say about that? That's the process. Yes, they are doing it now. They are asking people now to write and all that. So that again is part of the process, you know, of ensuring that, look, we have to restore the confidence. An issue of enforceability, which is what you mentioned. Because when you don't enforce judgment, so why do I have to go to court? Beautiful. Why do you have to waste time, you know, years? You know, if I file an appeal, it takes up to 10 years for the appeal to be heard and all that. So these are the reforms that people are looking at and say, listen, we must correct this, or else people will begin to take laws into their hand and lose confidence in the judiciary, and it's going to affect the investors who want to come.
All the stakeholders,
my brother, the CJN is involved in the Attorney General, the Nigerian Bar Association, and all other major stakeholders, the government themselves, you know, in terms of funding and independence, they're all getting involved. I say, look, we must get our judicial system working. Look at Singapore, look at South Africa, look at Kenya. They are all far ahead. So what is wrong with our system? And so they are now putting those reforms in terms, even constitutional amendment is taking care of most of the things. And one of the most important reforms is the issue of not allowing every matter to go from the lowest court to the Supreme Court. They want to limit it. Things that go to Supreme Court. They want to also increase more of the judicial division of the Court of Appeal. So a lot is being done presently by the government, the present government, in terms of reforms of the judiciary in order to ensure confidence is restored. Yes.
Want those reforms to kick in and to see that, you know, there's results and it moves from policy to implementation. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you.
And this is a beautiful place you guys have here in Abuja. I'm so pleased. When I heard that you're in Transcorp, I said, New Central, it just came up. You guys are bubbling. Honestly, I'm proud. I'm proud of you guys.
That's very kind of you to say. We've just had a conversation with Mr. Monday Ubani, SAN, the Leonard Silk, who shared with us his thoughts on a wide array of conversations, from the judiciary, you know, to the certificate forgery issue and more. But now let's divert our attention to a different conversation. We had the pleasure of speaking with the Honorable Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Abubakar Atiku-Bagudu, and he spoke to a number of things. He had initially delivered a keynote speaking about setting a national productivity agenda, and we had a one-on-one with him yesterday on Breakfast Central. So let's take a look at this video.
hello and thanks for joining us. We're still here at the 31st edition of the Nigeria Economic Summit, and we have a special guest with us, the Honorable Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Abubakar Atiku-Bagudu. A warm welcome to you, sir, and thanks for joining us at News Central. This year's summit focuses on the reform imperative. What practical In practical terms, what does this mean for your ministry, and how are you ensuring that ongoing reforms translate into real improvement in the lives of citizens?
Well, thank you. The National Nigeria Economic Summit, which is an annual event, partnership between the government and private sector, I think is a very innovative contribution by Nigeria to global economic or policy discourse, where both the government and the private sector appreciated that it's a partnership and they need to work together, think together. So I congratulate all those who have been instrumental in bringing this to the fore, and in particular this year, which is the 31st edition, and the reform imperative, where the reforms of the last 2.5 years were analyzed, the results achieved are more equally important, what can be done from here going forward. As many people have appreciated, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a very courageous leader, led the country to take a combination of reforms at the same time, maybe which have never been done certainly in any developing country at the same time, because fuel subsidies that have been with us for decades, causing distortions and foreign exchange market distortions, even just those two alone, removing them at the same time, particularly given their price effect and the opportunity that can be exploited by opposition and those who do not want us to progress, that they can easily exploit on that and create disaffection for the government, was overwhelmingly supported. Those policies were overwhelmingly supported by, among other, the private sector and many Nigerians, to the extent that today we are seeing the results of those reforms. We have a country where the economy is functioning better. We are generating growth higher than what it has been since COVID. We have seen revenue to all three tiers of government increasing. We have seen policies that are being put in place, even to ensure that those who are affected by the reforms do not suffer. More conditional cash transfer, more interventions to support food and food production, more intervention to support students, consumer credit guarantee agencies, as well as the encouragement of all those who are willing to work hard to be confident that they will be supported. We have an energy transition program where more CNG penetration is taking place so as to lower the fuel cost. So all this have come together to begin to show to Nigerians that these reforms were necessary and were for the good of the country. And even while that is, to the extent that there is any pain, is not ignored, is appreciated.
And the sacrifices won't be in vain.
Yes.
And you've spoken very well on the positives and the bold economic reforms this administration has taken. The NESG has also stressed that reforms must be institutionalized so that these sacrifices are not in vain and not personalized. What steps are you taking to ensure Nigeria's economic reform agenda outlives any single administration? That, we're not going to have policy somersaults, and the gains and the sacrifices that we've made will be here to stay.
You may recall that even ahead of becoming president, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, then as candidate, was hosted by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group in Lagos. And he dealt with this issue. He doesn't see it as a personal triumph or personal ownership. He believes that his role as a leader is to galvanize Nigerians to do what we believe will take Nigeria to its place of pride among the community of nations. So he appreciates everyone. He leads by showing that these measures, these reforms, are reforms by Nigerians, not just by the president. And I think that is very comforting in terms of institutionalizing them. And again, the private sector, particularly NESG, have taken ownership. Nigerians have taken ownership. The private sector has taken ownership. So that is easier to cement reforms. Mr. President has said that he's very happy for the benefit of the reforms to be shared by others, even while a disproportionate share of the blame is on him. So, but he's a leader, he takes that.
Now, Honourable Minister, one of the NES 31 focus area is driving industrialization and infrastructure for competitiveness. How is the national budget being structured to support these priorities, especially in sectors that can boost productivity and jobs? Because we see mega projects ongoing. For example, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. It's audacious. It's never been done in the history of this country.
Well, again, Mr. President's vision, which is captured in the Renewed Hope agenda, is certainly that of a great Nigeria, which he believes in, which in his experience as a state governor of Lagos, he showed what is possible even and yet at the national level. That we have a Renewed Hope infrastructure fund as part of the budget to draw attention to the fact that there are historic missed opportunities in infrastructure, in water resources, in energy transition, that we need to get right in railway, and we can't get them right by public spending. We simply do not have the money. We don't want to wait forever. So what do? Let's do what other countries have done. Let's demonstrate to investors that we want these projects, and we are willing to put in our equity, and we are willing to financially engineer and crowd in private spending so that these projects can come to fruition. And that's what is being done with Lagos Calabar. That's what is being done with Ilela, or what Sokoto Badagry. That is what is being done with Trans-Sahara Superhighway. That's what is being done with the Port Harcourt to Maiduguri rail line, as well as others, including now water resources, to ensure that we have more dams, more water resources that can support, and at the same time also an energy transition that will help, combination of which will all help us to become competitive.
Now, finally, Honourable Minister, as Nigeria looks forward to 2030, what clear metrics will your ministry use to track progress, not just on economic growth, but on inclusion and our shared prosperity as Nigerians?
Well, luckily, two things are happening at the same time, and this summit is all focusing on them. We are putting in place the 2026 to 2030 Renewed Hope National Development Plan, which is the second of a 5-year plan. And Mr. President have already given us an objective, a $1 trillion economy by the year 2030. Not just a $1 trillion economy, but one that includes everyone.
Inclusive.
Equally important, Mr. President and the National Economic Council have approved a Renewed Hope Ward Development Plan. At the lowest level of government, below the local governments, you have what are called wards. Some local governments have 10, some have 15, some even. So we are mapping, we have 8,809 of them. And it's a collaborative program where the federal government, the state, the local government are going to work together. It's a whole of society approach where, so we are mapping the economic potentials of each of these wards and putting a program together with private sector, with development partners in a way that we can support the development of those economic opportunities in the world so that each of these worlds will do better economically, will create more opportunities for people, generate more value from what is being done, so that by the year 2030, well, Mr. President, in this renewed hope, his message is that, look, we are strong enough to support any economically active Nigerian, irrespective where he or she lives, without ignoring those who need palliative support. But this is not a palliative program, but this is, Mr. President's way of saying we have achieved a measure of predictability with the macroeconomy, and now we should focus on ensuring that everyone who is willing to put effort is supported.
Mr. President has set the bar really high. Are you confident that this is achievable, this 1 trillion naira economy by 2030?
Nigerians, I feel very relaxed. At first I was scared, but the more I interact with Nigerians, I see that this has been done by someone, and I see the kind of commitment that we are hearing, and the guidance, the ideas, the suggestions, the yes, we can do it. Nigeria has been over $600 million before. So if it has been that in the past, why can we doubt our ability? What we need is a leader with profound mindset. So Ajibola Ahmed Tinubu, by every stretch of imagination, qualifies as that, to galvanize us, and that's what is happening.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister for Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Atiku Bagudu. It's an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thanks for joining us on News Central. Thank you.
Very interesting interview with the Minister of Economic Planning, Budget and Economic Planning, Minister there, Mr. Bagudu, with Benga Agborowa. Interesting conversation. Well, that's not all. Let's also tell you here on Breakfast Central that 2 months and 15 days after embarking on its annual recess, the Senate, Nigeria's upper legislative chamber, has resumed plenary activities. The resumption comes amid fresh concerns raised by the President of the Senate over rising hunger and insecurity affecting millions of Nigerians. Also present in plenary was suspended lawmaker Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, who made a formal return to the floor of the Senate. And guess what? She sat at that same seat again. Anyway, don't take my word for it. National Assembly correspondent Sergei Ibrahim brings details from the maiden Senate plenary after they returned. Let's get to know what's in store and definitely what's next. Take a look.
After 75 days away, lawmakers in the upper legislative chamber returned to Parliament amid pleasantries and high enthusiasm. They quickly switched gears to the day's business following the arrival of the President of the Senate. In his opening remarks, the President got to Akpabio while welcoming lawmakers from the long break, called for a renewed resolve to address long-standing challenges confronting Nigerians, especially hunger and insecurity. He added that lawmakers must work to ensure Nigerians reap the benefits of effective legislation and oversight.
Over 33 million Nigerians face acute food insecurity, a crisis demanding urgent legislative attention, particularly in areas of agriculture, rural roads, irrigation, and mechanization. The banners of terrorism and banditry still threaten the very countrysides of Nigeria. Above all, we must wield our power of oversight with vigilance so that the people's money is spent for the people's good.
The Senate President thereafter proceeded to read correspondences from the executive, including several letters notifying the chamber of appointments into various federal government agencies. Of note, were 2 letters from the President withholding assent to the National Institute of Transport Technology Establishment Bill and the National Assembly Library Trust Fund Establishment Bill, citing concerns over financing. Meanwhile, as the day's proceedings continued, suspended lawmaker Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan made her first appearance in plenary since her suspension in March. The lawmaker was seen exchanging pleasantries with several of her colleagues before taking her seat to observe proceedings. As plenary moved further down the order paper to the business of the day, 2 bills scaled second reading, one seeking to amend the Passport Miscellaneous Provisions Act 2004 and the Central Gaming Bill, which was presented for concurrence by the Senate leader, Okpeyemi Bamidele. Both bills passed second reading after due consideration by lawmakers. And after 2 months and 15 days of recess, the Senate President's message is clear that lawmakers must work tirelessly to ensure that Nigerians benefit from inclusive governance and also the dividends of democracy. And for suspended lawmaker Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, eyes are keen on seeing what the next few days holds as the lawmaker regains access into the chambers. From the National Assembly, Abuja, for News Central, Sagir Ibrahim.
Sagir Ibrahim doing the Lord's work, like they say. Let's tell you that the Supreme Court has reserved judgment on the suit filed by the Osun State government against the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, over the withholding of local government funds belonging to the state by the federal government. Counsel to the Osun State government expressed confidence in the court's wisdom, saying that they have presented their arguments faithfully and will leave the rest to divine guidance. The council further clarified that a disputed letter from the Attorney General's office, which directed the withholding of Osun's local government allocations, formed the basis of the state's challenge before the Apex Court. The Supreme Court adjourned the case to October to clarify the powers of the federal government over local government funds across the country.
The letter, which I said is the foundation of the matter before their lordships. We've canvassed argument both left and right, and it may not be proper to be canvassing arguments in the media. Our contention is that is the letter with which the Federation intervened in the affairs of Osun State. You know, remember 2 cases were taken. 2 cases were taken. The first one, he said we should not withdraw it, which was withdrawn and it was struck out. We are referring to that as at the time we filed that case, the letter, we have not gotten it. That was what we were referring to. So, but we put everything in our brief.
We're going to a quick break. When we come back, the front pages of the newspapers is up next. Do us a favor, stay with us as we have more. We're back. Time for the front pages of the newspapers, and hopefully we'll also swing back to Abuja and find out what the final day of the Nigerian Economic Summit looks like. But before that, we do have our very own in-house public affairs analyst, Mr. Theophilus Akatugba, joins us this morning. Welcome. Morning. Morning. Big story on the front pages. We're going to go straight to the first one. We're going to This Nigeria will be the first paper. There you go. The big story. Mr. President, I resign. Tinubu accepts resignation of Minister Nnaji over allegations of certificate forgery. Ex-minister blames political detractors. Another one. Federal government seeks... anyway, before we go to that story, let's focus on this one. Mr. President, I resign. I know you've been following this story.
Yes.
It's everywhere. Premium Times decided to do a due diligence job that was expected of those who were supposed to do it before his appointment. And the media organization went further to ensure that they dug deeper. And it seems like there was a skeleton inside the cupboard. The minister himself put up a rebuttal, press release, conference, statement, said, no, they are trying to tarnish my image. And all of a sudden, I don't know, if we have his resignation letter, I'd like us to put it up on the screen. let's get to see the minister's resignation letter as well, where he had highlighted key reasons why he resigned. Part of which he mentioned was that he's spent years building his reputation for people to just tarnish it. However, in the entire document of stating why he's leaving, he did not admit to what has been said. Secondly, he also did not apologize if it's actually true. But there you have it. It says, after deep reflection and consultation with family, associates, and well-meaning Nigerians, I have today tendered my resignation as the Honorable Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. At the top there, he says, former Honorable Minister. He highlights the fact that he's now former. In other words, he's accepted it already, and he's not going back as it seems. Now, he says this decision did not come lightly. Over the past week, an orchestrated, sustained campaign of falsehood, politically motivated, and malicious attacks have been waged against my person, integrity, and office across print, electronic, and social media platforms. These unfounded allegations, he calls them unfounded, and media distortions have not only caused personal distress, but have also begun to distract from the vital work of the ministry and the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President. But anyway, we're going to stop there. Let's get your take on this. I don't know if you permit me to also put the response, the acceptance from the presidency through its SSA. Mr. Bayonenuga says President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has accepted the resignation of Geoffrey Uche Nnaji, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, following some allegations against him. President Tinubu appointed Nnaji in August 2023. He resigned today in a letter thanking the president for allowing him to serve Nigeria. This is where I have a challenge with this acceptance. He said, Nnaji said, yes, he has been the target of blackmail by political opponents. President Tinubu thanked him for his service and wished him well in future endeavors. This, for me, also feels like the presidency has not also done its own due diligence to accept what has happened. Then they're now simply just restating what he has said. Nnamdi said, like, oh, who stole the meat from the cooking pot? I don't know. They say now, so person still out. Yes. That's what I'm seeing the presidency do. But I've given you a full appropriate of.
First of all, it's very embarrassing to the government. It's very embarrassing to the minister himself. You know, our country is bedeviled by this situation of fake academic qualifications. It's been a huge problem in a society that tend to pay attention and prioritize certificates of qualification instead of, the raw talent and the gift of man. Anyway, the only way you can ascertain your qualification is by certification. And so a lot of Nigerians, in fact, the elites are very used to this situation. A lot of them had forged for too long. Remember the story of the face of a liar that was, even birth certificate was forged. So forgery has been a predominant. There was a time that a high commissioner, a British high consular general, was on TV and he was talking about the high propensity of the Nigerian to forge documents. And he said that among many embassies in the world, that there are many places where you ask somebody for a document, even if you just ask for a document, that Nigerians are very used to. If you ask them a document from heaven, they will say they will get it and they will give you a time they will get it. And that the British High Commission had a museum of fake and forged documents. So this spirit, this attitude, and this way, this is what has caught up with the minister. What he has not done, he said he's been blackmailed. But has he told us matter of factly, empirically, that he attended the school? He has not been able to do that. The idea of blackmail, if the blackmail is upon falsehood, upon the fact that you qualified, then you should just show proof that you qualified instead of resigning. His resignation is to save face and to reduce attention on himself. The government, it owes us a duty to check if he has these qualifications. And if he has deceived the country and deceived the National Assembly and every other, if he has utilized that forged certificate to obtain anything, he needs to be prosecuted. He should be prosecuted because we can't allow this type of situation at that level to just slide. Very embarrassing and unfortunate. And this also goes as a warning to Nigerians who hold forged and fake certificates. Because there are still many parading themselves around. Some have gained employment with fake and forged certificates. So it's a common practice, even in the civil service, everywhere. People forge their ages. People, fake age. Instead of people will tell you I have an official age and I have an unofficial age. Many people carry passports that do not bear their. So people will say, oh, this is big thing. It cuts across. People forge even sick doctor's report. So
forgery is like it's a norm.
It's a norm. People forge everything.
But don't
people have sworn affidavit of age declaration. If you go and check the data, some people have about 5 different age declarations for different purposes.
But don't you think that this in any way or one way or the other indicts the National Assembly, the Senate, also the security agencies who ordinarily will carry out a check on every individual that's to be appointed by the federal government? Because if due diligence was done thoroughly, take a bow would not just be the only thing after they've asked few questions.
Well, that is true. That's why you have the opposition. It is expected that if you have an opposition in the National Assembly, they should be the ones to ensure that they punch holes in some of these appointments. Because the government of the day will naturally want to shield, and if they have an idea, I know government will never appoint somebody with a suspicious qualification. Because the huge embarrassment that comes after it, you remember our former finance minister, I can't remember her name now, who had the NYC saga.
Yes, is it Kemi?
Kemi Adeosun.
Yeah, Adeosun.
And so the government always want to tread cautiously, but even if they are complicit, and they did, the opposition should have been able to check everyone presented to them through their own structures and systems. Please, this guy is coming for innovation. Check him out. Did he qualify? Get to know. He said from Nsuka, can you call someone? They have that network. So it's an indictment on National Assembly and more indictment on the opposition to have allowed things like this to go through without doing what they should have done. And so there's too much patting on the back. Sometimes people even have the knowledge, but they keep pushing this situation forward until it becomes a big embarrassment. And that's what we are seeing now.
Well,
and he's even holding an office sign innovation. So
that is where you needed to see the response. We took some of the responses this morning, and Nigerians are bothered because this is somebody who is sitting on a platform that has to do with science. Innovation, and you cannot mix these two with forgery, because what it means is, and like I mentioned this morning while we're having our wake-up conversation, I said, having been a science student myself back in school, you know what science stands for. You cannot tweak it. You cannot forge it. Whatever you measure, the hypothesis, this is what it should be. You use it as a means to ensure that you're able to guide your results. So at the end of the day, there cannot be innovation on innovation. So very embarrassing. I do not have sympathy for anyone who is who has forged anything, even to the extent of age. Sometimes we trivialize these issues. If someone can tell you this is my age, he is likely to have very wrong diagnostics medically. And then nothing can be done to save him if there's a problem. Because so people only tell doctors their real age, and behind the scene they have forged and falsified age declarations, results, including even primary school certificates. So it's a very big mess. You remember the issue of universities that were in Benin Republic, where a lot of Nigerians attended, where certificates are sold. Even in Nigeria, honorary degrees are being given by fake institutions. I mentioned this week that there's a popular place, Uluwole, where
and they know it, and we loud it. We even talk about it with pride.
With pride.
Yes.
And don't forget that you have other political personalities who have been through these same forgery instances or cases in the past. Very popular names as well, who have been fingered to have forged their documents here or there. But should we expect, finally, if you want to call in, please feel free. The phone lines are opened. Feel free to be part of this conversation. You can hit us up on the line there. It's right there on the screen. And my question is, should we be expecting a statement from the presidency? And because this is a crime, it's a crime.
Yes.
Should we expect a statement that would cover everything that the presidency thinks about the resignation, the issue, and then what will be meted to the former minister?
Yeah, the presidency
in terms of
will want
punishment
as
or
much
whatever.
as possible. I suspect they will play very safe. They will not want to dabble into it. It is up to those who are accusing him to file a charge against him, and so that thorough investigation will be done. It's also up to the university. If they find out that he has presented a certificate that they did not issue, they also can go after him to have forged their certificate. So to that extent, the presidency will want to play safe and just wish him well.
Anyway, let us know what you think very quickly. Talk to us and let's know if you believe that at this point the presidency should also put out a statement clearing its name, because at the end of the day, this was an appointee of this administration. And it also shows that possibly due diligence was not done 100%, because if due diligence was done, this would have been highlighted. But then again, like Theophilus has said, some of us, not all of us, some of us are very skilled when it comes to engaging in acts like this. But this Nigeria has a lot loaded. It's basically like it's picked the top stories, and I like what they've done on their front page. Let's look at this next one. Benin Palace rejects, I know this will be very interesting to you. Benin Palace rejects Iyaloja for Edo markets, warns against cultural imposition. I am aware, and I know you are aware as well, on what's unfolding in Edo State, where the first daughter, as she calls herself, of the number one citizen, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has gone to Edo State. She tried doing this last year or 2 years ago upon her, ascent to that position, which is not constitutional, because it's not in the constitution that you have a first daughter of the president who holds an office. It's not there. Same as the wife of the president who holds an office. This is the first time we're seeing that, where the families of the president also have their offices, which is not in the constitution. So we don't know where the budget is coming from to fund these offices. But then again, she did put her foot first forward to ensure that she imposes an Iyaloja. And the word impose was used by the people of Edo State, that you cannot impose someone. And now it's a return. We're seeing it happen again. And the Oba has spoken. The Oba Benin says, no, we have our culture. You cannot come and change it. What's going on?
Well, my immediate thought, first of all, is that the president has to, do a silent talk so that the daughter will understand the diversity of Nigeria. Secondly, I know that these markets are used now a bit more for political penetration. And, the president had attempted. Edo has been a tough place for the president to interact with. If you remember the election of Ize-Iyamu and the speech he made that turned out to be Edo, not be Lagos. So the Edo people are quite vigilant about this kind of thing. And don't forget that Benin, Edo State, is very culturally rooted. And to that extent, they understand what a market leader is different from the political Iyaloja position. And if she wanted to even have preside over Nigerian markets, then that name Iyaloja had to reflect the ethnicity of all the people.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, it was a very false move and is in the wrong place. And the Oba of Benin's position was so clear, and asked, do you understand what this is here? And that those roles are very spiritual, they are very traditional. It is one way the Oba interacts with the core of society, through the Yekis, those leaders in the market. They are not just ordinarily appointed. They are appointed, they are set apart, and they are ordained traditionally for these roles. And they also perform certain rituals and rites, and they are not going to be foreign influence. So she made an error, and I hope the president will call the Oba and quickly pull back, is my hope.
So when you say the president will call the Yoruba, are we looking at the fact that this Iyaloja imposition will still go on?
No. I said pull back.
Okay. Just to tell
yes,
okay.
Because the president does not need this type of, and should not step the wrong foot in Edo that can give ammunition to the opposition, because that state has remained very, very sensitive. His broadcast almost broadcast did not go well with the people. They felt he should not have interfered at that level. Then he was not president. But he made a broadcast and called the Edo people. And so they have not, the Edo people are very sensitive, and they don't want to be seen that they are controlled from outside. They want to take their decision, and they want to own their decision. And the Oba of Benin have now gotten full support of the people, of the market women. And they have even put out a press statement. Yes. And they have called a meeting of all the Iyekis.
Yes.
So that anyone that appeared to be playing to this
gallery,
they will want. So it's a very, Edo is a unique state. Edo State is a unique state. The Oba's institution in Edo is a unique one.
It's unique.
It derives from the people and from a spiritual standpoint. So it's not like one of those traditional rulers. So I want to stop there.
I think we both know what we're talking about. It's not it's a tough nut to just go in and crack because of how very deep and deep in ancient beliefs. Whether you like it or not, I was also trying to go through a few reading on it, and I said, okay, you cannot just come and break this. It can't happen overnight.
She should have even called it Iyeki, that I'm trying to relate with them, not install. You can't, they will give
you. Exactly. but it seemed like she chose, because at the end of the day, she had to.
And she said whatever she had done.
And the other, that part where the other asked, I said, do you really know
what this thing means?
What this thing means? Let's see another story. Let's go to the Punch this time. I think we have the same story on the front page of the Punch. There you have it. Tinubu to pick new INEC chair this week. Yakubu step aside. President consults Council of State. Selection process under spotlight.
Obedience should be very happy today.
Why?
They have always they fault Mahmood. They
believe finished his tenure.
They believe Mahmood took the election from them. They go to town that they're uploading the glitch that occurred in the election of 2023 is one of the biggest dent on Mahmood's tenure in office. The longest serving INEC chairman, the only one that have served 2 terms, and he's done 10 years. Apart from the highlights and the successes he chalked, is going away with 2 controversial falls. The glitch in the 2023 election that affected the real-time upload of results, and the 2019 late postponement of election that cost a lot of citizens who had traveled and observers who are positioned to observe the election, and it was due to logistics reasons. So Mahmood is going to go away with these 2 dents, but even though the results were upheld by the courts, you can see that they keep those has been recurring decimals to try to invalidate President Tinubu's presidency, and so he's going away. He's done a lot of good work, and he was able to give us more than 53,000 new polling units that have expanded access, and then also made traveling to distances, overcrowding in polling. Sometime in the north, you see so many people in one place and they never cast their vote in 9 p.m. He was able to help do that. He also did continuous voters register, online registration, increasing access, and weeded out and tried to give us a very reliable voters register. So he has so many pluses, and of course the election of 2023 that he presided over gave us a very diverse result, in which even the motorcycle riders won election, and governors lost election in their states. All that idea that the governor must always win. We saw defeats in Edo, we saw in Delta, and many other places where governors were roundly defeated and their own choice candidates lost.
Yeah.
So he must be given that credit to have presided over such an election with more diversified results that gave us a more colorful House of Assembly, a National Assembly. So, and not even some states where some people who could not look at what happened in Abia State, where the returning officer completely refused to declare a false candidate and she stood her ground. These elections gave us very, some good outcome, and the presidential election left him with the challenge of the glitch. So I wish him well, and I am very, very happy with him. I know that as every leader will always tell you there is just one scar, like Jonathan said. The Chibok girls remain one of his biggest scars.
Yeah, one of them. But we'll see how Nigerians react to this as time goes by.
Yes. No, the big thing is about who's coming next.
Who's coming?
So
who's coming? Some names are flying already.
This is the big issue. And my hope is that President Tinubu will do the best and ensure that the person that he will choose will be widely accepted. Because we have a very polarized and sensitive electoral system. And you also have the human Nigerian and the defects of the Nigerian society. The issue of forgery and trying to get your way at all costs. For anyone to have forged, if anybody forged a certificate, he can do anything to gain office.
Yeah.
So the president, it's our prayer that he does and chooses someone that evoke confidence and trust, because that is one of the big issues the INEC is facing at the moment.
Okay. Let's see another story you have on the front page of the Punch newspaper. This one says, police pensioners rally for protest after talks collapse. Pensioners are still crying.
Yes, you see, I'm very, very...
In a country where...
well, it's painful that pensioners have to suffer. It's also painful that those who are now pensioners were one working in the system. I told one person that if you don't build a system, the same system will punish you. This is why those in office should do well to ensure that what the office is designed to do or to offer, the service, ensure it is delivered, so that when you are out of that office, you will not be consumed by the failures that you recorded. We are crying now when you have become a victim. I was in a police station and I was sitting in the DPO's office and we're having a conversation. And all of a sudden, a man walked in and the DPO and that man had a conversation. And what was the conversation? This man was protesting that the police had recovered money for him, and that the money they are taking from the recovered money was just excessive and unfair. So he was protesting. The DPO was looking at him. The DPO said, but that's what we agreed, that when we recover the money, we'll get this 10%. The man who was now protesting, standing before the DPO, was now all of a sudden the DPO said, "Oga, I'm disappointed in you. Were you not in this my seat before?" He was a former DPO in the same place. The system has attacked him. Same system, same system. He said, but you have this is what we do here, and you know it. How come now you are coming to protest? Is it because you're a family person? At that point, I said, you see, this is the doctrine. Whatever you are doing as a public office holder, that same office, that same system you did not correct, you'll be a victim of it when you go to the other side. So this is why the pensioners, now when they look back every day, what they wish is that documents and files should move faster. You don't hold on people's documents or people's files only because you want them to come and see you specially for the file to move to the next table. When you are doing that, you are destroying lives. Now they are on the other side. They feel so bad as someone who is supposed to sign something or improve their condition has not done so. Did they do that for other people while they were in office?
Big question.
Yeah.
Big question, and we know that the answer is no. Because this pension issue, from time immemorial, it's been there. Let's move down to Daily Independent so that we can cover all the newspapers before we head on to Abuja and find out what's happening. Finally, minister accused of certificate forgery resigns. You have that at the top. They say finally. Yeah. I think what you said about the media, the press, having taken this case up themselves and pushed
This
premium
is,
times
this is
on
the
the
role.
lines.
This is a beautiful role of the press. You see, the media. I said something that if you want to correct Nigeria and very quickly to reform 3 institutions, reform the judiciary, reform the Nigerian police, and then empower the media, you would have sorted Nigeria out.
Let's go to another one. 98% of Nigerians will be exempted from pay in 2026, Oyedele says. Despite rising FX inflows, debt payments squeezing fiscal space, as Tinubu seeks $2.3 billion external loan for budget deficit and others.
Yes, naturally, like you know that all of these borrowings are already in the budget. So to continue to highlight them is just to create opportunity for the opposition to have a field day. So opposition will always lash on it. But if you check, they are not borrowing out of the framework that they already have. It is part of the fiscal and the budgetary approvals that have been granted to the president. We hear before that they will borrow 21 billion. It is within those frameworks that these borrowings are taking place. The truth is that the government feel happy, but the opposition says the government lies, and the government is just banditing figures that are propaganda. But figures don't lie, and economy will always disgrace you if you lie. So there was a video I saw of former Vice President Osinbajo criticizing a former government, either government or Jonathan, about the exchange rate. And at that time, during his government, exchange rate has gone to 700. So you can see that when you speak as a politician, please stay away from figures and the economy, because it will disgrace you if you don't understand the dynamics around economic figures.
Even if it doesn't disgrace you, it will in a way put you at the forefront and make you look like at a certain point that you are equally confused.
Absolutely.
And I'll give you an example. During the campaigns in 2023, the current president had, in a way, threw a jab at Mr. Peter Gregory by laughing with his supporters at the back behind him. I also saw that video recently where he had said, "China statistics we go chop."
So now,
but now the president was reading out statistics, and the people on the other hand were saying, but you had told us when the statistics we go chop. Now we too go chop now, and no one. So I agree with you on that point. We look forward to connect with Abuja, but before then, let's look at another big story. It's been on the front pages back to back twice, yesterday and today. On the front page of Daily Independent, no going back on strike, ASU tells federal government on page 6. It seems like the ASU strike is going to be one that Nigerians must indeed learn how to deal with, because ASU is saying that this may end up being the mother of all strikes because they are indeed done and dusted.
Well, I hope that they will be able to find a truce, because they have been quiet. They've not been some strike in recent past. And if they are threatening, whatever the issues are, I hope that they nip these things in the bud, because right now, the attention to the educational sector, I was thinking, was going to lead to the university taking care of their own. I thought that's the move, why the government is asking them to charge the kind of fees that will sustain the management and the operation of the universities. Now, if that is what you are doing, I'm going to give my students or my children, I'm going to give them loans. I thought that's where we are going. And so if these are issues in the past or their immediate, the recent past, I want the government to avoid it at all costs and ensure that there is no strike. ASU too should be very innovative. I've always believed that the quality of a nation is to the extent of the quality of its educational institutions. And the ASU must be so innovative as the citadel of Nigerian learning and knowledge base. They should be able to give us alternatives to some of these issues instead of one way, the only way. If it is not this, then it is a strike. They are teaching courses on negotiation. They are teaching courses on different aspects of our society. I can't imagine that a university is still, unable to to construct rules within university. You know, I believe universities should be able to, they should function as a nation within their campuses and find solutions to the myriad of problems that this nation is facing, including the ones they are facing, because they should be innovative. This is my call. Instead of strikes, damages our system, slows down the period a young person or a student will graduate. It frustrates their course and plan of life. So as soon, just like Pengassan was prevailed upon to think of Nigeria, not only the interest of 800 persons.
Even though they came back with a fight and said that that statement didn't go down well with them from the vice president. But let's head to where the economic matters are being discussed. The final day, NESG, Nigeria Economic Summit. Olive is live now to join us as she gives us the final feedback on what the final day looks like and what we are to expect. Olive, I can see behind you already set, the final day, and a lot is lined up. Can you bring us up to speed what it is, what it would look like, and what we should expect?
Thank you very much, Joe Hansen and Mr. Akatuba. Wonderful analysis there. We've been following up, and we certainly missed the Lagos studio. But we are coming to you live from day 3 of the Nigeria Economic Summit, and it's been quite a packed conversations, again, revolving around the central theme. Central theme being, of course, the reform initiative, moving Nigeria from where we are to where we ought to be in terms of building a prosperous and inclusive Nigeria by 2030. There have been keynote addresses and panel sessions. Today is the concluded part of NEST 31, and the conversations will be looking at unlocking the gateway to financial access between nations, looking at what the private sector's role is in catalyzing the continent's growth. There'll also be plenary looking at Pan-African expansion, gateways and barriers, which is, of course, a key and a critical conversation to have. What's been very exciting for me in this past 3 days would not just be the excellent conversations that have been had. I'm sure you can hear at the background, they're starting this morning, so I'm going to have to wrap up shortly so I can join the main conference. But it's been an insightful conversation, and the one thing that is clear is that we're all geared towards looking forward to making Nigeria inclusive and prosperous by 2030, realizing that is not the sole responsibility of the government or the private sector, but a combined effort of all the parties involved. For us here on Breakfast Central, we're signing out. The next time you'll be seeing myself and Benga on TV, we'll be broadcasting live from our studios in Lagos. But over and out, I am Olive Emodi, and it's been an absolute delight bringing you updates from the Nigeria Economic Summit 2025. See you at 2026. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you so much, Olive. Well said, well done. Let's see if the partnership between the government, private sector, and those who are looking forward to invest, in quotes, the investors and the guardians of the economy, will definitely pull this one off, ensuring that Nigeria gains and not lose. Thank you for all that you've done, yourself and Benga. Great coverage of the Nigeria Economic Summit for 2025. Like you said, we'll see you guys in 2026. And then we'll see you guys back in the studio tomorrow. I don't want to hear that the flight was missing. Make sure you guys get here. Anyway, that's Olive signing out, Mr. Katuba. Let's also highlight the NESG, the Nigerian Economic Summit, which is also key, catalyzing, ensuring that economic reforms are indeed what will benefit all Nigerians. There's one key question, and the question is, from time immemorial, we've seen Vision 2020. I'm sure you're aware of that. And then we saw 2015. And now we're seeing Vision 2030. Over the years, how have you seen Nigeria's economy grow, even though these visions are being put in place? Have we exceeded? Have we achieved? Can we really beat our chest and say we set a plan, a goal, and we got it, we harnessed, we achieved it? Or is it something that is far-fetched, much more like hard for us to reach?
You know, when a vision is defined, it is expected that the organs and the systems of that nation work concertedly towards that goal. Nigeria does not have the system to achieve all these visions that they set. And that's why those dates do come, and we don't even know, we can't even, pinpoint or point at any achievement made in the course of the... If you look at the visions and you do an assessment, that gives you a total picture of the mockery of the systems we operate. we are working at cross purposes. These countries' systems and organs and agencies, they work at cross purposes. Until you bring them into a system, a machinery that work, synergistically, you can't achieve any vision. So this is why Africa want to have ECHO. They can't have it because the black people don't work synergistically. They come to the football field with great individual players, but they are not forming a team. But a team that has less stars and just have one star at the top, you can see they will build a structure around that footballer and he will shine through and win the match for them. So black nations have not understood. That's why you see, when we go abroad, we say the system works because the person is blind to human thought and is not even expecting a reward from anyone. Yeah. He does what the rule book says. If everyone works like that, it becomes a harmonious functioning system. Nigeria is like a human being. If your heart is faulty, your veins that are transporting the blood, the kidneys and the organs are not functioning right, you will have a sick man. So the Nigerian nation is sick because his organs are not functioning the way they should. There's someone who woke up this morning, all he's looking for is that the office he occupies is to distort it for his own benefit.
All right.
So when you are doing that, you are talking of visions. That's why leaders create the vision, but it doesn't have the tools to achieve the vision. So those days, 2030 is 5 years time.
Yeah,
so
it's not far.
If we don't get the engine to work synergistically, that vision will come again and we now move to Vision 4040.
Thank you so much, Mr. Katugba, for your time here with us. Pleasure. Very interesting. Yeah. I want to thank you too for watching. Breakfast Central makes a return tomorrow.